In part one of my discussion with Reverend Dr. Megan Rohrer, we covered the topic of a religion in relation to being a transgender individual. I broke this wonderful conversation up into two videos. Nearly everything that Megan said was priceless, and I couldn't leave anything out. So have a seat and stay tuned for the second round of Is Being Trans Really Against God? Hey everyone, Audrey here, and welcome to Transaudyssey. I'm really glad you're watching today's special episode. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Also, click on that notification bell down below. Every time I upload a new episode to Transaudyssey, you'll be notified. If you haven't seen part one of my interview with Reverend Dr. Megan Rohrer, that's okay. You can watch it when you're done with this video. If you did watch part one, I hope it inspired you. Megan has a very engaging presence and is a true beacon of light and positivity. Today I continue my discussion with Megan about religion and being a trans person. You will learn about Megan's experience when she appeared on an episode of Queer Eye, and you'll get a reveal of one of my bucket list wishes. Anyways, let's watch part two. Now, during your journey, did you ever have any doubts about your decision to be your true self? And how did you come to terms with it?
I think the way that I would describe it is that because the part of the trans process that people don't usually talk about publicly involves fertility, that because, I mean, it used to be that way. It used to be that you couldn't change your sex on your driver's license unless you proved you were infertile, because judges believed, well, if you have the ability to have a baby inside of your body, then you meet the definition of being a woman regardless of anything else going on with you. And people really had to make a dramatic choice about their fertility and about where they wanted to do, what they wanted to be and what they wanted to do in the process. And so I think, I don't think I had doubts in terms of like, how do I feel or how do I want to present in the world? I think I've had moments where I was maybe more realistic about my safety and took that more seriously than other days. I have a lot of privilege being in San Francisco, and when I travel with my small child to places like South Dakota, and we bring a binder with us with letters from therapists and psychologists and their teachers saying that we're not abusing them, because if they tripped and broke their arm and went to the hospital in South Dakota, CPS could be called, because that's how transgender status is viewed with children in that area. And so like I've had doubts about like, oh crap, what does it mean to live in the world and with safety? But the only places where my own journey has like paused or sped up or slowed down has been about trying to figure out what my own connection to my fertility is. And I think that's almost a whole separate, it feels like it's separate, but it's so interconnected because it's some of the same parts. And so I wanted to say that kind of publicly, because I think a lot of people don't always know that that's a part of the decision-making process as they're going through different stages, and that, you know, I might know exactly what I want to look like and what my hormone level things would be, but if my fertility outranks my gender preferences, then I've got to figure out which one wins the battle. And that's where I think my tension comes from, is those two pulling against each other.
I totally agree with that. I'm going through the same thing where, because a lot of transgender females like myself, right away they want to get the surgery, and they want to get top surgery done, and they want everything at once.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what I want to do. I mean, I'm on hormones, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do from this point on.
Yeah.
I'm older, and sometimes I have my own doubts, and it's hard. It's hard. I know this sounds silly. It's hard to be transgender.
Yeah, it is, especially because the thinking and the doing are not connected, right? Because it's a little bit like going through Alice's time warp, right? You can read everything you want about transness, but as many trans academics say, transness is in the doing, not in the knowing. And so this is not to minimize people who are in non-binary places, but I do think that you can't know what you're going to know after a surgery. You can't know what you're going to know after hormones settle in different ways, and you can't know what you're going to know on the other side of that. And so I've seen people who, their sexuality shifts and they just never imagined it, or their profession shifts profoundly and they never imagined it. The things that they love to eat shifts and they never could have imagined it. There's just so many ways in which you don't know what's going to happen until afterwards. Jameson Green is one of the reasons that I kind of embraced my transness more fully. He came to like a pastor training and he said something like that the reason he decided to transition is he thought, you don't study something for this long and then not do it. And if I'm going to do it, I might as well start now, right? And so his advice is always, if you're gonna do it, like, just leap, because you're not gonna regret the extra time you had, but you might regret waiting. And so there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's no right answers, and you don't know what's gonna happen next. So it really is like, it's like jumping off one of those big cliffs and then hoping you pop back up, right?
I'm one of those people that made the leap, and I had been like building up to it for years and years and years, but I made the leap, and I made a lot of mistakes, and that's why I started my channel, is because I want to help others who are just starting. Maybe I can help ease their suffering a little bit by just giving them some advice on that. What are your thoughts? You might have already touched on this, but what are your thoughts on religious groups that actively target the gay and transgender community on almost a daily basis?
There are a lot of studies that say that most people who are focused heavily on telling gay and bisexual and trans people that they're wrong are struggling with their own relationships with that. And so on the one hand, I have a lot of compassion, because it's very likely that the people who are being the worst are themselves gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, and that they despise themselves and don't have an outlet for talking about it. It doesn't excuse the fact that they're doing spiritual abuse. Most of the time I will block them or mute them on my Facebook page. People get one chance to be nicer and then I block them, because there's so few places where people don't get trolled or told they're terrible. But maybe it's because my job is like forgiveness and compassion. Is I have a lot of wounds myself, and people who did a lot of damage to me. I came out in South Dakota after Matthew Shepard's death, and people threw holy water on me and tried to convert me and used Bible scriptures to try to tell me that I was going to go to hell forever. And I used that to fuel my curiosity and to try to figure out how I could have language for what I knew to be true, that God loved you and wasn't going to give up on you. And so I probably would have been a sculpture major, and I ended up becoming a religion major. But I just think I haven't known a single person in my life, no matter how terrible they were to me, who hasn't apologized.
Okay.
Ever, right? And so the people in high school who were terrible, I mean, it helps that I get to be on like fancy TV shows and things, and right? So I mean, it helps that they see that I'm maybe doing okay things in the world right now. But I really legitimately have not had a single person who has been personally aggressively mean towards me who has not apologized. Just this, like 3 days ago, someone sent me an email saying, I know you're not a big fan of me because of how I treated you, but know that I was moved by you and how you were on Queer Eye. So even those you hate are touched by you. And I had forgotten this person, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even remember them, but I liked that point because I feel like that's the kind of thing that we need to hear, right? We hear in the story, we hear in the newspaper the times that trans people are murdered, but they don't put right this year it was just announced that the National Social Worker of the Year is a trans man, right? It's my friend Xander, who in seminary was having conversations with me about this, right? That's the only reason I know about it, but it's not like in the news. So we're so bombarded with all the terrible things that could happen. How could people not know, right? If I as a trans person haven't heard all these stories of awesome, cool trans people, how is it that the ordinary person could see that and then affirm us? And so it sucks. I mean, don't let people do that to you. But I have seen transformation in huge ways.
I personally am not religious or a believer, but after researching some of the things you've done and hearing you speak, I feel really. I would go to your church in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and why do you think that is? Do you think that maybe I do have some kind of spirituality in me?
Well, so I work really hard on crafting the worship experience that we do. Our worship experiences are designed to help people heal from spiritual trauma that they've experienced. And I use really expansive language so that people don't have to agree to any particular creed or do anything other than want to root for each other in services that I hold. That doesn't mean I don't talk about Jesus every now and then, because Jesus comes up in the conversation. So I think it could be a couple things. One, it could be you wanting to explore another facet of your being. I think we all have a spirit that connects us to something bigger, whether it's just looking at beautiful stars in the night and just feeling wowed by it. But sometimes it's just people want to be around a trans person who's able to be out and proud and celebrated. They want to be around a community of people who love me, because if people love me as a trans person, they can also love them as a trans person. We've had people come visit our church in person from as far as Australia. And so I think there is a hunger for supportive words for all people. And we do a number of things, like we have changed some old timey hymns, like the tune "God Be With You Till We Meet Again." I've reset to "God Be With You Through Your Transition," and there's a verse about hormones, beginning hormones and being blessed, and beginning a surgery and being blessed, and beginning sharing your new name with people and being blessed. And so I think some people just have not had, if they haven't had a supportive family, they want someone to root for them like a grandma ought to, right? And so even if people aren't interested in the Jesus part, but they are interested in a cheerleader that cares for them, then you know what? Like, Jesus chose a bunch of people who were fishermen to be the followers, and not other rabbis, and not other like people who sat around praying, like doctors and just like people covered in dirt who were going to walk around the countryside and just try to be kind to each other. And he also said that the greatest commandment is to love. And by golly, if we couldn't spend our whole life trying to figure out how to do that right. So I think whatever it is that helps you connect with a faith community, that's completely fine with me. There's plenty of other churches and plenty of other pastors who will say that there's a particular list of rules you got to follow in order to gain admittance.
I had mentioned that I also saw you on that episode of Queer Eye, and I just want to know, what was it like working with the Fab Five and helping Pastor Noah with his struggle?
It's just so wonderful to be able to join a team of 5 cheerleaders and to really root for someone. I think being on reality television can be it can be an interesting choice for folk. We've seen how it goes for some trans people, but it was a delight to be a part of a show where literally everyone involved in it, from producers to someone who would just drive you somewhere, were like rooting for you in every moment and just so excited that you were there to help and support other people. And Pastor Noah just was like many of us. I think he was feeling afraid to take a big step on his journey, and he was holding on to all of the criticism he had heard from other people and wasn't necessarily able to proclaim as loud of a welcome as he now is able to. And it helped our congregation here that I'm in. Our building was built in the 40s and in the 60s. So I spent a lot of time doing like repairs, and like we just fixed the front steps because our church literally is built on sand, which biblically is not a good idea, nor is it for plumbing. And so I was feeling so bad about our building and thinking like, oh, there's so many repairs and it's going to be so expensive. And I got to tell you, after visiting Noah's church, you'll have to watch the episode if you don't know what I'm talking about. But after visiting Noah's church, I was like, our building is so together. Like, we are so great. Like, I came back with an appreciation for how much things were going well. And before I had left, I was seeing too many of the ways that things were falling apart. And so I was grateful to have come back with my own renewed sense of optimism as well.
After we watched that, my fiance is like, Audrey, you need to talk to Megan. And I just looked at her and I'm like, you're absolutely right. I do. Because we were just both floored by that meeting you had. And you could just see the light click on in Noah's head. And I was like, that was powerful.
Yeah. Well, and the what I said to Noah, I would say to anyone out there who's watching is, if you are kinder to everyone else in the world than you are to yourself, then take a pause and take a breath. Like the golden rule that works across most religious traditions, that do unto others as you want them to do to you, love your neighbor as yourself. It's a two-pronged thing, right? Love your neighbor, sure, but love yourself. And it's appropriate to be talking to you around pride, because that was the same thing that they were struggling for. Here in San Francisco, they chose not to march as protest the year after Stonewall. They wanted to march as pride, right? That's where the name came from. They felt that there was this need to claim their beautifulness, to claim their communal beautifulness in a world that thought that they were queer people back when we hadn't reclaimed that yet. And so I think that's the message that if you can get everyone to hear it, would be the biggest blessing in the world, is just that, like, you get to be proud of yourself even if the world's not there yet. You get to be proud of yourself even if your therapist doesn't know what they're talking about. You get to be proud of yourself whether or not a surgeon approves you for whatever, right? You get to be proud of yourself even when your voice is going through puberty again. You can be proud of yourself. And by golly, if other people say they're proud of you, this is what I've been practicing over the last few months, is to just say thank you instead of coming up with a list of reasons that they're wrong to be proud of you. And so anybody who needs to hear it, God loves you. I love you. I know Audrey loves you. You can do it, guys. You got this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things on my bucket list is I want to get a hug from Karamo.
Nice. Yeah, he's a good hugger.
I just need it.
Yeah, soft clothing.
All the world would be better. If someone wants to view your church, or if they just need advice, how can they get a hold of you, or how can they watch it?
So our live stream is at my Facebook page, which is Reverend Dr. Megan Rohrer. Or if you just type in Megan Rohrer, you'll find it. MMROHRER. That's the Swiss spelling. It makes no sense. But if you actually just type in transgender pastor Megan, you'll find me on Google. And any of those things, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email, is a perfectly acceptable way to reach out.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining me on Trans Odyssey. And I hope that, maybe we could talk again sometime in the future.
Yeah, sounds good.
Honestly, this was one of the best conversations that I've had in a long time. I don't know about you, but a lot of things resonated deep inside me. I was touched by her words that gave a name to feelings that I couldn't describe before. Megan really helped me, and I hope you got something out of it too. Please tell me your story. What are your thoughts about what Megan had to say? Is it something that helps you on your transgender journey? I want to know. Let's start a conversation. Write your comments down below this video. Remember, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'd really like it if you followed me on Instagram and Twitter. I have links on my YouTube home screen, or you can just search for @OdysseyGirl. See you next time, and big hugs. Bye.